In a better world, people would cultivate virtue and develop habits of right action, practicing them regardless of external pressure. But we don't live in that world. For most people, concepts like honor and morality emerge from community, not individual will. These vital pro-social behaviors rely on constant reinforcement by others. When daily life consists of anonymous, disconnected interactions, it becomes easier to justify selfishness. But when people must live among and depend on those who observe and remember how they behave, accountability shapes conduct. Social norms depend heavily on the expectation of repeated interactions, what game theorists call iterated games. A functioning society requires widespread cooperation. When people believe that they benefit more from acting selfishly than cooperating, social cohesion begins to unravel. In one-time interactions, the incentive to cheat or defect rises sharply. One can gain immediate advantage with little risk of social or material consequences. Carnival workers and traveling merchants were once known for scamming customers. Sailors and touring rock musicians were infamous for defiling the honor of the daughters of the town. These groups operated without accountability because they never had to face the communities that they affected. Their minimal connection to others reduced the costs of antisocial behavior and encouraged defection. Today, we see a broader breakdown of communal life. We fragmented communities, commodified identity, and isolated individuals. In doing so, we've eroded the shared moral standards and stripped away even the most basic incentives to cultivate virtue. As one of my colleagues recently observed, communal gatherings used to serve as informal wellness checks. Church, for example, granted both cultural norms and moral expectations. It also required people to present themselves before others. Even atheists or agnostics showed up on Sunday morning, not because of their faith, but to signal solidarity and to demonstrate their role as contributing members in the community. Churches noticed what others missed. Underfed or unwashed children caught someone's eye. A hungover woman felt the weight of disapproval. An unfaithful man encountered the quiet judgment of those around him. These small acts of social accountability reinforced a shared morality. For most of history, individual independence was difficult, if not impossible. People relied on their communities for safety, food, education, goods, and entertainment. In many ancient societies, exile was tantamount to a death sentence. Many preferred to die by their own hand than to be cast out. Reputation and honor mattered more than money because survival depended on others' trust. A man's worth reflected the number of relationships that he had managed honorably over time. Today, people can meet most of their basic needs without relying on other people, just the government. That shift creates the illusion of freedom, but in reality, it simply replaced the dependence on community with dependence on the state. Now, instead of interacting face-to-face within tight-knit communities, we operate as isolated individuals within anonymous digital spaces. Functions that were once performed by churches and neighborhoods have shifted to strange liminal spaces like malls or faceless bureaucracies. But social correction, once a communal responsibility, has also become a taboo. Attempting to help or to intervene in a public space risks being shamed as a so-called Karen on social media. Or even worse, being called a racist and being charged with something like manslaughter like Daniel Penny for intervening on a subway. The best social worker in the world, no matter how dedicated, can't match the quiet authority of vigilant grandmothers. And as that kind of local, relational accountability fades, the consequences grow harder to ignore. A shared religion and common cultural norms significantly increase the likelihood that people will cooperate and act ethically, even among strangers. This dynamic defines what we call high-trust societies, ones where individuals expect cooperation and moral behavior from others even without close day-to-day interactions and accountability. In high-trust societies, cultural expectations and religious beliefs so deeply shape conduct that people often can't imagine behaving in any other way. Even when defection carries few immediate consequences, trust persists because moral behavior has been so internalized through habit and community values. This is why most successful civilizations develop around a unifying religion and dominant cultural framework. A shared moral and social code allows complex societies to function by making behavior more predictable. Without that foundation, everyday interactions become unreliable and cooperation breaks down. Still, this model has its limits. Problems arise when a society continues to assume widespread agreement on values long after the cultural or religious foundation has eroded. Without a clear basis for those norms or mechanisms to enforce them, shared assumptions collapse. The result isn't cohesion, but confusion, fragmentation, and in many cases, failure. Social norms draw their power from habit and community enforcement. Religious precepts gain strength by asserting transcendent truths. Strip both away, and the incentive to cooperate weakens dramatically. This is why the popular secular call to just be a good person falls flat. What does it mean to be good? In what context? And to what end? Only deep-rooted moral traditions developed over time within specific communities can answer those questions with any clarity or authority. When pressure mounts, the only forces that reliably foster cooperation are interdependence, strong communal accountability, or a belief in higher truths, all of which arise from tight-knit communities. Attempts to universalize these concepts without those foundations always collapse in the end. As Americans confront the consequences of open borders and increasing social isolation, questions of national identity have become more urgent. We're told Americans value liberty and hard work, and while that's true, it's not enough. Many debate distant acquaintances online, trying to enforce shared principles across cultural divides, and appealing to common sense in a world where little remains in common. To recover a meaningful national identity, we need to build on the foundation of Christian faith and real local community. Neighbors must be able to depend on one another and hold each other accountable. And that's a tall order in a digital age when every device offers an escape from responsibility. Those willing to embrace that challenge will be the only ones who are equipped to lead. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click like, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is a great time to do so. If you'd like to get these broadcasts as podcasts, you need to subscribe to the Auron MacIntyre Show on your favorite podcast platform. And I thank so many of you for reviewing and recommending. The show continues to grow across all the podcast platforms, and I couldn't be happier about that. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter or Gab or Substack or Instagram, if you'd like to get these videos on Rumble or Odyssey, the links to do all of that are down below in the description. If you'd like to support the show, you can head over to shopblazemedia.com and click on the Auron MacIntyre collection. You'll see the new Brutal American t-shirt there. There's also a hoodie. The Atlantic decided to insult all of us right-wingers by calling us Brutal Americans, but you know what? That sounds pretty awesome, so I think we'll just make a cool shirt out of it. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and as always, I'll talk to you next time.